Hey, it's Justin Colletti of Sonic Scoop, and today we're going to check out some new headphones that come in this case. This is probably the most requested set of headphones for me to take a look at on this channel. I recently did a video about all of the best headphones out there, and a whole bunch of people said, "You're missing one." They are these, the HEDDphones Two from HEDD. That's HEDD as in HEDD, stands for Heinz Electrodynamic Designs. And the reason the new HEDDphones 2 didn't make it in there is because they weren't available yet. They had been announced, but they weren't shipping. And I got to tell you, pretty much all of the pre-orders on these, I believe, were sold out. There's been a long waiting list for these. And these are some high-end headphones that are a very different design than pretty much any other headphones you're going to find on the market. They have a totally different type of driver in them called an air motion transformer. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that is, why it's interesting, and why you might be interested in these headphones and this particular technology. Now, before we get too deep into it, I want to acknowledge that HEDD, they're a company whose stuff I like a lot. They're really best known for their monitors and more recently their headphones. And they are sponsors on this year's MixCon series. And I'm actually going to have some representatives from HEDD on a live Q&A with me right after the conclusion of this video about these headphones. And we'll get to talk to them a little bit about monitor design and headphone design in general. And you can ask them more about their line and more about different types of speaker and headphone builds out there. And we can talk a little bit more about the technology underneath these, which is something that I've really been keen on for quite some time. In case you're not familiar with HEDD, it's a company that was founded by physicist Klaus Heinz and his son, Dr. Friedrich Knopf. And Klaus Heinz is notable not only for being the lead designer on the HEDD monitors, but he was also the original designer of Atom audio monitors. One of the pretty uncommon features that's shared both by HEDD and his earlier company, Atom Audio, is this type of what some people call ribbon tweeter design, which HEDD gives the more technical name to of an air motion transformer. People often think of them as being ribbon tweeters because they're corrugated, folded pieces of metal, a lot like the concept behind a ribbon microphone in reverse. But these air motion transformers have a couple of unique benefits that we've been seeing in monitors now for a couple of decades, and now just in recent years, finally in headphones as well. Probably the biggest benefit of the air motion transformer style of driver is that they give you really accurate transients, tremendous transient detail, but without harshness. They can sound really smooth, really unfatiguing and gentle in the top end, while still giving you tons of dynamic and transient detail. Because this type of corrugated metal driver design doesn't have to have a ton of excursion and doesn't have to move a ton of air, it allows it to respond really quickly to changes in dynamics. And that's where the dynamic detail and the great transient response of this type of driver comes from. And because you have that great detail and transient response out of them, you don't have to voice them super bright to get all of the clarity out of the upper frequencies and the upper mid-range, making for a really smooth, unfatiguing, and never harsh listening experience. I've been a big fan of air motion transformers since I first discovered them a couple of decades ago, but until the headphone series came out, really no one had put them into a headphone design in a reliable way. And with this new design of the HEDDphone Two, they're even more practical than before in headphones. I want to get right into some of my tasting notes on these new headphones and give you my exact thoughts about how they sounded, who I think they might benefit. But first, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to HEDD. They are in fact giving away a pair of these high-end HEDDphone 2 headphones as part of the MixCon mega giveaway that's still going on. You can check it out in the description down below. We're giving away well over $10,000 worth of free gear with 3 chances to win. So good luck to you. All right, without any more preamble, let's get right into my notes, my thoughts on the headphones and how they compare to other higher-end headphone solutions out there. Well, first of all, these are definitely towards the top of the top in headphone quality that you can find. These are not by any means the least expensive headphones on the market, but they're also not headphones that are obviously outperformed by any other headphones on the market. I would put them up there against all of the other best, highest end brand of headphones. But they have a very different tone, feel, design philosophy, underlying technology, and tonal characteristic than the average of some other headphone brands. And we'll talk about how specifically they differ. I'd say right out of the gate, the biggest number one thing that I notice about the headphones, if I had to use one word to describe them, would be unfatiguing. These are headphones that you just don't get tired of listening to. You really could listen to these things for hours straight, and you never get that sense of harshness or fatigue that you can sometimes get from headphones. And I think a big part of that is the air motion transformer driver design. This is a quality that air motion transformer driver designs are also known for in speakers like the studio monitors made by HEDD. But in addition to being extremely smooth, and that is smooth with a capital SMOOTH, they're also extremely detailed. And this is a great combination that you don't find in a lot of monitoring options. The fact that they can be smooth, unfatiguing, not harsh, not overly bright, but be extremely detailed at the same time. And that's another thing that all of the monitors that Klaus Heinz has been involved in designing really have in common. That, again, owes in great large part to the particular technology here. This type of driver doesn't have to have really extreme driver excursion, where it really has to move back and forth extremely far distances. It can really vibrate in a much smaller path, and that allows it to respond more quickly to changes in dynamics, which is what gives us a lot of that extra added detail without having to have excessive added brightness. The ability of these headphones and this type of driver to respond extremely quickly to changes in dynamics is what gives it really accurate transient response. And that in turn leads to some of the most detailed high frequency and mid-range you're going to find without having to have a overly harsh or excessively bright voicing in the headphones. And that brings us to another one of the major characteristics here. These things are also voiced to be fairly smooth. There isn't a huge bombastic bump in the low frequencies. There's a ton of low frequency extension. There's useful information on these headphones down below 50 and 40 hertz. But it's not blown up, exaggerated low frequency. And the high frequency extension is fantastic as well. You get all the high frequency information you're going to need without weird humps and bumps in the high frequencies or upper mid-range to make them feel really extra dazzling and exciting. If anything, it ends up giving a kind of mid-forward impression, really revealing the most important part of the frequency spectrum, but without any excessive dips or humps anywhere in the mid-range. You just get this smooth, neutral, flat feeling out of the mids without the headphones trying to exaggerate, hype up, or flatter the material that you're working on. So are they the most bombastic, exciting sounding headphone design out there? No, they're not meant to be. They're meant to be neutral and high fidelity in the true sense of extremely faithful to the actual recorded source that you have. Another interesting thing about listening with these headphones on is that the drivers are a little bit further away from your ears compared to some other dynamic or planar magnetic kinds of designs. So you just get this greater sense of space around you. Like there's a slightly room-like feeling about putting these headphones on. And because the drivers sit a little bit further away from your ears than the average, it seems to give even more of a stereo spread to the sound. One of the other big things here that I found really interesting and potentially impressive is that although they go really deep in the lows, they don't have a lot of excess low frequency pressure. One of the things I've noticed about a lot of modern high-end headphone designs, including some of my favorites, is that some of that information down there around 40 hertz and 50 hertz, you don't only hear the sound of it, but you also feel the pressure of that low frequency energy, a little bit like you would with speakers. And that can be a kind of fun thing, to feel that extra pressure and feel like, yeah, we're really moving air. It really feels a little bit like being in front of a set of speakers. But with the headphones, because these drivers don't have to move as far and they don't have to pump as much unnecessary extra air into your ears, you get all that low frequency extension and you get to hear your low frequencies very well, but without excess low frequency pressure on your ears. And that again lends to them being some of the least fatiguing headphones you're likely to ever try on. But all of these things that I've just mentioned are potentially pros or cons depending on your taste in headphones. If you want headphones that are going to dazzle you a little bit more and have a little bit more of a bombastic bottom or a little bit more of a glossy, shiny top end, then that is not how these are voiced. Their voice to be a little bit more neutral, mid-forward, honest, and revealing without being misleadingly exciting. They share a little something in common with some of the other headphones that I've looked at in my recent roundups. One that I'd compare them to is a little bit like these Neumann NDH30s, which I found to be some of the more mid-range forward headphones out there. But I think they sound prettier than the Neumanns and offer more detail and better frequency response than the Neumanns. And they ought to, because they cost significantly more than the Neumanns do. But they tilt in that direction of really helping you to focus in on what the mid-range is doing. The other headphones that I would compare them to, just in terms of quality, would be things like the best headphones from Odyssey and from Focal, some high-end open-back brands like those. But again, slightly different voicing than those types of headphones. They're made a little bit less to appeal to potential hi-fi listeners who want really pretty-sounding headphones, and they're made to appeal to someone who wants an even more neutral sound out of their headphones than some of the other highest-end brands. Another one of the pros here is just this beautifully designed headphone band that they call the headband, as an HEDD band, but I've never seen a design quite like this. And I think it has two great strengths. One is that it's so customizable. Just by moving these straps to different holes here, there's two straps you can move, you can really change the overall height of the crown of these, the curvature of the band, to make it really custom fit your head, and even to change the aesthetics and look of the headphone a little bit. So this I thought was really ingenious. And in its default setting here, it fits really well on a lot of heads. It has a little bit higher of a crown than I might want, but I can easily adjust this really quickly by changing these straps to make it sit lower down on my head. Here, I'll give you a quick example. With a slight adjustment, I can make it sit a little bit lower down on my head and reduce some of that crowning or increase it substantially. Now, with all those pros out of the way, I'd like to mention a couple of the potential cons of these headphones. They're really minor. One is that these headphones are a little bit heavier than the average for high-end headphones this size. Pretty much all really high-end, high-performance headphones are going to be a little bit on the large side, and the headphones are no exception. I do think that aesthetically, they look a little bit better on than some other super large headphone designs. But one of the potential cons here is that they are slightly heavier. They're actually 25% lighter than the prior generations of headphones from HEDD, which is a really big accomplishment. And when you are wearing them, even though they are a little heavier than the average, the way this headband is designed just makes them feel less heavy than they are. The weight is just evenly distributed around your head, and I wore these for hours and hours. Just today, I was probably wearing these on and off for about 4 or 5 hours, and I'm not getting any, neck pain or discomfort from wearing slightly heavier than average headphones. That's something you should know. The only other little quibble I could have here is that when you first put them on or take them off, or if they're sealed around your head and you kind of mess around with them and push them in and out, you will actually hear the little air motion transformers in here kind of crinkle and flex. It's this interesting feeling of someone very quietly, gently crinkling something next to your ear. And the first time I heard that, I was like, whoa, what's going on? What's that about? But after I've taken these headphones on and off a few times, I very quickly get used to that quiet sound of crinkling every time that I do. And it's a little audible reminder that this is a totally different driver design from pretty much anything else that's out there. So who are these headphones for? I'd say they're for anyone who wants a high-end headphone design that's as unfatiguing as possible, that gives you great transient detail and extreme levels of accuracy and precision without being overly harsh or overly bright. So if you want smooth sounding headphones that are unfatiguing and detailed, that's what the HEDDphone Twos are, 100%. If you want something that feels neutral and feels high fidelity in the sense of really true to the original source that you're actually hearing, that's what the HEDDphone Twos do. If you want high fidelity as in super hi-fi sounding, knock your socks off with tons of extra low end and super sparkly glossy top end, that's not what the headphones are. They're much more of an even keel and much more of a smooth kind of mid-forward type of design that's made to help you make your mixes sound dazzling rather than to just dazzle you and flatter your work right out of the box. If any of that sounds appealing to you, definitely check them out. They could be worth a listen. These are not the least expensive headphones out there, but I will say that to get the kind of low frequency response that they offer, you would have to spend much more than the cost of these headphones in studio monitors and room treatment to get the kinds of useful information in the 40 and 50 hertz range that you can get right out of the headphones. We are giving away a pair of these. Big thanks to HEDD for that. So check out the MixCon mega giveaway down below. Big thanks to those guys for helping make MixCon possible. And also big thanks to them for doing a live Q&A coming up with us right next after this, where you can ask them more about the air motion transformer type of design, about the HEDDphone Twos and the original headphones, and about their monitor designs and monitor designs in general. So you can figure out what types of specs and design considerations should be most important for you in your studio. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope to see you in the live Q&A.